If you study this chapter, so 2 marks, 1 question you can expect, and different operators that I can use in SQL. Sir, listen to me carefully. Nimge yellow textbook explanation sikkalla. First, I have to define the structure of the table. How many columns I should have? Which are all the different data types that I use in SQL? Both the values are equal. If yes, then the condition becomes true. Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to the first session on SQL Commands. It's one of the important chapter that all of you should know. If you learn this chapter, practical programs, whatever you get on SQL will be very easy. So I have discussed the last chapter, that is database concepts. In that, I have discussed the various concepts, how we deal with respect to the database. But in this chapter, so I'll be just discussing more on SQL commands, how to write this SQL commands, what are the different SQL commands that I have. So guys, so let me start this chapter with the blueprint. So guys, if you study this chapter, so 2 marks, 1 question you can expect, and 5 marks, 1 question if you can expect. Out of this chapter, so you will be able to get 7 marks. You'll be able to get 7 marks. It's a pretty good marks if you just learn this chapter. And also, if you read this chapter, so you will be able to write the SQL queries in the lab completely. It will become very easy. So guys, keep that in mind. So what is that I will discuss in this chapter? So I will be discussing about the introduction. So with respect to the SQL, why do we need SQL and all those stuff. And also I will be discussing the SQL architecture. So how exactly this SQL is working. I'll just explain with a diagram. Then after that, SQL commands. I will be discussing about the SQL commands. So in that, so we have something called data manipulation language, and also I will be discussing about the data definition language also along with DML, and I will be discussing the different data types that I use in SQL. So I have varieties of data types that I'll be using in SQL to store different types of data. So that is what I will be discussing in the data types in SQL. So different operators that I can use in SQL. I'll be discussing this topic also in this session. This already you have studied in C++. I'll just rush through with this topic. So for all of you, and also SQL expressions, different expressions. Expressions is a combination of valid variable, literals and operands, right? So guys, how we can write the expression and different types of expressions that we have in SQL is also I will be discussing with this. And the last concept for the session, SQL constraint. This is important in this session, right? So that's why I have kept it at the end, otherwise you will not watch completely. So that's the reason for all of you, right? Fine. I will be starting the session with the architecture of SQL. Before I start this, let me tell you the front and back of SQL, right? Yen sir, front and back. Jatka heltin sir, solpa SQL da. We call this SQL as SQL. We pronounce it as SQL. And also we call this as structured query language. What is that? Answer idu structured query language. Barita idre nimge late agite anta sir. Structured query language is what I will call this SQL as. And also I will pronounce it as. Yenanta nan pronounce martini SQL. I can also call it as SQL. Why do I use this language? If I want, for example, the other day I was discussing, guys, matimlai man paramochu, pakshnang kaichu, raile enda kaichu, kana kaya. Suppose if I speak like this, if I teach in this language, most of you will not understand. That's why I'm talking to you in English, right? Why do you expect me to talk in English? Because you will understand that language, right? So in the same way, I have the database. If I want to talk to the database, like, to get my things done, database will understand only this language. That's the reason I use SQL. Point number 1. And also SQL is one of the language which will help me to write a query to interact with the database. I have different classification of languages in the SQL, which I will be discussing in detail. Before that, let me tell you how exactly SQL is working. How exactly this SQL is working with the help of SQL architecture diagram. Imagine I will be typing my query. What is the meaning of query first of all, sir? ಏನಪ್ಪ ನೀನು ಏಜು, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನು ಬೆಳ್ಳಗಿದೆಯಾ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನು ಕಪ್ಪಗಿದೆಯಾ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನು ಇಷ್ಟು ಉದ್ದ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಗೆ ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನು ಓದ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀನು ಗರ್ಲ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಯಾಕೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಗರ್ಲ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ಸೊ ಈ ಥರ ನಾನು ಏನೇ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ಐ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಯು ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್, that is what I will call it as query. That is what I will call it as query. Asking a question, asking for something is what I will call it as a query. So in SQL, right? So you are asking for something, that is what I will call it as a query. So fine, you have asked something. So whatever you have asked, so that query will come to the query language processor. That query will come to the query language processor. So this processor will convert that query, that is with the help of parser. Sir, listen to me carefully, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲೂ ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ವಿತ್ ದ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ವೇರಿ ಪಾರ್ಸರ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್. ಅದು ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ವೇರಿ ಪಾರ್ಸರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗೋ ಥರ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅದು ವಿತ್ ದ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸರ್. ವೈ ಶುಡ್ ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸರ್ ಹಿಯರ್? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಸರ್, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸರ್. ಪಾರ್ಸರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ದ ಕ್ವೇರಿ ಇಂಟು ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್. ಅದು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಥರ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಟು ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವೇರಿ. ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸೇಷನ್ ಏನಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ? ಸೊ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವೇರಿ ಟು ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಬೆಟರ್, ಟು ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ದ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವೇರಿ, ಆಪ್ಟಿಮೈಸರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಯು. ಸೊ ಇದಿಷ್ಟು ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಕಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಇಂಜಿನ್ಗೆ. ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಇಂಜಿನ್ಗೆ DBMS ಇಂಜಿನ್ಗೆ. DBMS ಇಂಜಿನ್ಗೆ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಅ ಮಿಸ್ಟೇಕ್ ದೇರ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಇಂಜಿನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೆದು ಬಿಡ್ತೀರಾ. ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ DBMS. ಸೊ DBMS ಇಂಜಿನ್ಗೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್, is it DBMS engine. So we have something called file manager and transaction manager. So all the activity with respect to the file, so will be managed by file manager. Creation, accessing, arranging, modifying, everything will be done with the help of file manager with respect to files. With respect to transaction manager, ಎಷ್ಟು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಪ್ರತಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಗೂ ಯುನೀಕ್ ನಂಬರ್. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ ಎನಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್, ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ doing with the help of transaction manager. So guys, with the help of these guys, so we will be able to access the physical database. Physical database ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲ್ ಆಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಡೇಟಾ ಇರೋದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದೆಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಕಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಇಟ್, ದೆನ್ ದ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಡ್. ಯು ಗಾಟ್ ಮೈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್? ಇಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಡೇಟಾನ ನಾನು ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಏನು ಸರ್ಕಸ್ಸು ಸರ್? ಶಾರ್ಟಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್. ನಾನೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆರಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್, ನಾನೊಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ನಾನು ಕೇಳಿದ ರೀತಿ ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ಥರ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತಾರೆ, ಮತ್ತು ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಹೆಂಗೆ ತೊಗೋಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಇವ್ರು ಶಾರ್ಟ್ಕಟ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತಾರೆ. ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇಂಜಿನಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಥರ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೋತಾರೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಆ ಲೊಕೇಶನ್ಗೆ ಬಂದು ಆ ಡೇಟಾನೇ ಎತ್ಕೋತಾರೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಹೌ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ with respect to the SQL architecture. Fine. So some of the components that you have to remember: query dispatcher, optimization engine, classic query engine, and SQL query engine. All these things are the components that you should remember with respect to. Okay, moving on to the next concept. So guys, SQL commands. You have something called SQL commands. In textbook, they have given data definition language, what exactly data definition language, and some of the points with respect to the data definition language. In the same way, we have data definition language, data manipulation language, and transaction control language. So we have the classification of SQL queries, right? So the classification of SQL queries or SQL commands also you can tell, right? So we have classified into three mainly, 1, 2, 3. What is this 3 is doing? So guys, in this slide I have mentioned data definition language, but I'll be speaking on these two also for your information, right? So you will get a clear idea. Sir, yen sir, ನೀವೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಸರ್, ಇದು 3 ಸರ್, SQL ಅಲ್ಲಿ 3 ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ಗಳಿದೆ ಸರ್, 3 ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ನ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪರ್ಪಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಇನ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಒನ್ ಬೈ ಒನ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾವುದು? ಡೇಟಾ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್. ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ಡೇಟಾ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಸರ್, ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಆಸ್ ದ ನೇಮ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಸೇಸ್, ಡೇಟಾ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್. ಯು ಆರ್ ಡಿಫೈನಿಂಗ್, it will help you to define the table structure. It will help you to define the table structure. What is the meaning of it, sir? ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಸರ್, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್. ಇದೇನು ಸರ್? ಸರ್ ಇದು ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಸರ್. ಏನು ಸರ್ ಇದು? ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಸರ್. ಈ ಟೇಬಲಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೆ 4 ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್. ಏನಿದೆ ಸರ್? 4 ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್. ಸೊ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೋತೀನಿ ಸರ್, ನನಗೂ ಸಾಕಾಗೋಗಿದೆ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಬರೆದು ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಏನು ಸರ್ ಇದು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್? ಟೇಬಲ್ ನೇಮ್ ಸರ್. ಏನಿದು? ಟೇಬಲ್ ನೇಮ್. ಫೈನ್. ಇದೇನು ಸರ್ ಇದು? ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ನಂಬರ್, ನೇಮ್, ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ನೇಮ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಸ್ ನೇಮ್ ಅಂತ ಬರೀತೀನಿ, ಏಜ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಫೋನ್ ನಂಬರ್, ರೈಟ್? ಫೋನ್ ನಂಬರ್. ಐ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ರೈಟ್ ಫೋನ್ ನಂಬರ್. ಫೈನ್. ಇದೊಂದು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಥರ ಕಾಣ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್. ಬಟ್ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಯು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೇಬಲ್, how did you come to know that you should have only 4 columns? What is the value that I should store here? How do you know that? Sir, before I have this table, I have to create. During the creation of the table, I will be able to specify what type of data that I should store, what column first it should come, what is the second column I should have, what is the third column I should have, what is the fourth column I should have. All these things I have to specify in the create query. So that is what I will call it as a structure of the table. First I have to define the structure of the table. How many columns I should have, in each column what should be the column name, in that particular column what type of value I should store. That is what I will call it as a schema. Sir, if I want to define the schema, I have to use data definition language. I have to use data definition language. Anything with respect to the schema, if you are dealing with, so you have to use data definition language is what you have to remember. Sir, idilla illi, but listen to me, that is very important. Adanna ನೀವು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. Then after that, what is the next important thing that I should remember? ಸರ್ ಬೇಗ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಂಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಮನೇಲೇ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್, ಸೊ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಗೈಸ್, ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಸರ್, ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ, 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 ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಡ್, ಯು ವುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ನೋಯಿಂಗ್. ಸರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, ಇನ್ಸರ್ಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್, ಡಿಲೀಟ್, ಡ್ರಾಪ್, ಏನು ಸರ್ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ? ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್, ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್, ಆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ನೌ ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಏನು ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸು? ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ command will help me to create the table. Select command will help me to select the data. Insert command will help me to insert the data. Update command will help me to update the data. Delete command will help me to delete the data. Drop command will help me to drop the table. ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಸರ್ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? The standard SQL commands to interact with the relational databases are, this is the standard SQL statements or the commands to interact with the tables, right? Artha aita? So once you understand this, now you understand. When it comes to the DDL, ಯಾವ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ? ಯಾವುದೆಲ್ಲ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಲಿಸನ್ ಟು ಮೀ. ಆಲ್ ದ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್, please listen, all the commands that we use to create, modify or delete the physical structure of the table. ನೀವು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ಸ್ಕೀಮಾ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ನೀವು ಸ್ಕೀಮಾನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ, ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ನೀವು ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ನ ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸೂ DDL ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಯಾವ್ಯಾವುದು ಸರ್? ಸರ್, ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್, ಆಲ್ಟರ್, ಡ್ರಾಪ್. All these three defines what is that? The structure of the table, right? That is what you have to remember. So mainly data definition language deals with the structure of the table. So can you list out some of the example? Create, alter, drop. Ishte baribek sir ನೀವು. ಇಷ್ಟು ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು. Moving on to the next one. So guys, I have DML. What is that I have? DML. Sir, ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ, ಡೇಟಾ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್. ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು? ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಇರೋದಂತಾನೆ ನೀವು ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗೋದು. ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಾನು ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆಗುತ್ತಾ? ನೋ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಡೂ ದ ಹೇರ್ ಕಟ್, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದ ಹೇರ್, ರೈಟ್? Then only you can cut it. In the same way, if you want to manipulate, data manipulate, first of all the data should be there. That is what you have to understand, right? So which are all the queries will come under DML? So guys, selection, insertion, deletion, update, modification, replacement, retrieval, sorting, all these things I can use it only if I have the data. I can select the data only if I have the data, right? So come on, insert the data. First of all, I should insert the data only if I have the structure. ನನಗೆ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ತಾನೇ ನಾನು ಇನ್ಸರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗೋದು. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ವೇ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ಐ ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ. ಇನ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ವೇ ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ? ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಚೇಂಜಸ್, ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ವೆಂಟ್ ರಾಂಗ್, ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇಟ್, ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್. ವೆನ್ ಡು ಐ ಡೂ ಇಟ್? ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ವೆನ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ. So in the same way modification, in the same way retrieval, and in the same way sorting, all these things will comes under the category of DML. In the same way I have something called TCL, transaction control language, which will come at the end, but you have to understand it now itself. We are classifying the SQL commands DDL, DML, TCL, that is transaction control language. Anything with respect to the transaction, so you will be dealing with a transaction control language. That's what you have to understand. Now, can you all recollect and tell me? So guys, SQL commands, classification of SQL commands, DML, DDL and TCL. DDL ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಡೇಟಾ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್, ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಯಾವ್ಯಾವುದು? ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್, ಆಲ್ಟರ್, ಡ್ರಾಪ್. ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್, ಆಲ್ಟರ್, ಡ್ರಾಪ್ ನೀಟಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. You are dealing with the structure, you are dealing with the schema. Got it? You are not dealing with the data. You are not dealing with the data. Whatever the data you have here, you are not dealing with these queries. If you deal with this data, so you will call that as DML. Using DML, you will deal with all this data. But you are dealing with this structure. This is what I will call it as a schema. This is what I will call it as a schema. ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲಮ್ ಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ಕಾಲಮ್ ಬೇಕು, ಕಾಲಮ್ ನೇಮ್ ಏನು, ಕಾಲಮಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಡೇಟಾನ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಆಲ್ ದೋಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಕಾಲ್ ದಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮಾ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ಟು ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ that I have, data types in SQL. Which are all the different data types that I use in SQL? Guys, it's a pretty common thing that I use. Types of SQL servers data type for users. So guys, exact numeric data type, that is int and numeric, and then I will be using floating numbers. I can also use floating numbers. You all know about it, right? I'll not spend much of the time here. So floating numbers, and then date and time format. You can use date and time format, YY, DD, MM, whatever the date format you want, you can specify on that. And then you have character string data type, char and varchar. So guys, varchar, you will not be knowing about this. Variable character, this is what we call it as a variable character. So this is the different data types that we use. You can expect this for 2 marks. Mention the different data types that we use in SQL. What is that? You will write numeric and integer. It's a pretty simple thing that you all know that, right? numeric and integer, float and date, and then after that you will write character and string. This is the different data types that we use in SQL, right? So moving on to the next one, operators in SQL. So guys, operators in SQL, we have already studied this concept in the C++. The same concept, same operators you will be using in the SQL also. What is that? Let's have a check. So arithmetic operator. So guys, all these things are the arithmetic operator. Why do we use plus? To perform the addition. Can I use it in SQL? Yes. Why do we use minus? To perform the subtraction. So why do we use star? Multiplication, then division and modulus. All these things are the arithmetic operators that we use in the SQL. So what is the next one? Comparison operators. Guys, we have is equal to. Why do we use this? Suppose if I have A and B. Guys, listen to me carefully. If both the values are equal, if yes, then the condition becomes true. If both the values, whatever I have here in A and B, if both are same, it returns true. So the same way, opposite to this, so if both the values are not equal, it returns true, otherwise it is false. The next one that I have, please understand the same meaning. If both the operands, whatever I have, if it is not equal, then it returns true. Then it returns true. The same thing, same meaning. Same way I have greater than. If A is greater than B, then it returns true. That's what you have to understand. All these things you have studied, right? So guys, if A is less than B, it returns true. Otherwise, false. Suppose A is greater than or equal to B. Please understand. Check if the value of the left operand, left in the sense this, is it? Come on. Left in the sense this one, right in the sense this one. Check if the value of the left operand is greater than or equal to the value of right operand. So whatever the value that I have here, right? So whatever the value that I have here, so it should be greater than or equal to this value. If it is that, true. Same way, opposite to that. So this will work. So guys, the same way, opposite to that will work here. A should be less than or equal to B. A should be less than the value whatever I have here. So it should be less than B. If that is true, then it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false is what you have to understand. Then I have not equal to, not less than and not greater than. So guys, the same way it will check. If it is true, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false is what you have to understand. So what is the next one I have? Next operator. All these operators we have already studied in C++, right? So that's why I'm not taking much of your time. So the next one I have logical operator. So guys, you have all and any, not, or. The new operators for you guys is all and any, otherwise not, or, and you have already studied, right? So I'll just mark out because you will forget. This is what you have to remember. All and any is a new operators for all of you, right? So what exactly this all is all about? Let's check that. All operator is used to compare. Please understand, it is used to compare. So which are all the values that I will be comparing? I will compare values to all the values in another value set. I compare all the values in the another value set. That is what you need to understand. So for example, Nantara yara idri class alli. So I have 60 members. I will compare with all the 60 members. So Nantara idina, Nantara idina, Nantara idina. So I'll compare it with all the 60 members. That's all about the all. Listen to me carefully. And operators allow to what operation? And multiply. What operation? Multiply. So that I will be doing with the where clause. Where clause. Henge sir, how exactly it is working? Suppose if the given condition, this I have and this, two conditions I have. This should be true and this should be true. Only then my result will be true. Only then my result will be true. Listen here. I have condition number 1 and I have condition number 2. I am using on and operator. So guys, what will be the result? Result will be 1. What is the meaning of 1? True. If true into true, then only true. 1 into 1, it is 1. Suppose I have 0 and 1. I'm using AND operator. 0 and 1. 0 into 1 is what? 0 into 1 is 0. 0 in this is false. This is how AND operator is working. When it comes to OR, let me finish off OR now so that you will understand. 1 plus 1 is 1. That is what you need to understand. Here 1 plus 1 is not 2. 1 plus 1 is 1. Why? Because true and false I'm dealing. 1 in this is true. 1 in this is true. 0 in this is false. So here I'm performing plus. Here I'm performing multiplication. So 1 plus 1, it is 1, right? So same way, true plus true, it is true. So I have 0 or 1. So what will be my result? So guys, that is plus, I'm performing plus 0 plus 1 is 1. So guys, in the same way, 1 or 0. So what will be my result? Can you tell me? Yes. So I have 1 plus 0. It is 1 only. It is true only. But if I use AND, please observe, if I use AND, 1 into 0 is 0. So this is how the AND and OR is working. This is how AND and OR is working. So what is this NOT? Please understand the meaning. NOT. If I use NOT operator, 0, NOT. 0 in the sense false. What will be my output? If I pass 0 as an input, my output will be 1. My output will be 1. Yenirutte adar complement. Suppose if I have 1, I will be using NOT operator. So what will happen to this output? 0. What will happen? 0. 0 idre 1 kodutte, 1 idre 0 kodutte. OR operationally addition you perform martira, AND operationally multiplication perform martira. That is what you have to understand. But when it comes to any, how exactly this any is working, please understand. Any operator is used to compare. Any operator is used to compare a value to any applicable value. Any applicable value in the list according to the condition. Here already ella, but here not completely. Any value you can compare based on the condition that you have given. That is what you have to understand. So when it comes to the logical operator, close your eyes and recollect. You have all and or not. And under multiplication, or under addition, not under complement. 0 idre 1 agate, 1 idre 0 agate. So any in the sense you will compare any, all in the sense you will compare all the values set. That's what you have to remember when it comes to logical operator. What is the next one that I have? I have SQL expressions. How many different types of SQL expressions? What is expressions? Please understand, A is equal to A plus 10. Can I call this as the expression? Yes. A valid combination of variable. This is what I will call it as variable. A valid combination of variable. This I will call it as, can you tell me what exactly this is? Operand. Can you tell me what is this? Operand. Right? This is literal. This is operator. A valid combination of all these things is what I will call it as a expression. Okay? So, but I have taken one particular expression. I have different types of expressions that I will be dealing with SQL. So, what is the different types of expression that you have? So, here I am using operator called arithmetic operator, but I can use different operators, right? I have different operators. So, can you tell me which are all the different expressions that you have? Yes, guys, you have SQL Boolean expression. When you are dealing with SQL Boolean expressions, you will fetch the data on the basis of matching the single values. That is 0 or 1. In the same way, you have numeric expressions. When it comes to the Boolean expression, you will fetch the data based on 0 and 1. That is single value. But you have the second one, that is numeric expression. This expression is used to perform any mathematical operations in the query. Query nalli ene mathematical operations na perform madidrunu, so numeric expressions anta karithivi. So what is the next one that you have? You have date expression. You have date expression. Using the date, you can perform a lot of operations. Ivattinda 30 days ke, so what is the cost? Ivattinda 20 days back, what is the cost? So ivattinda 10 days ahead, what is the cost? A lot of expressions that you can calculate in the query. So that I will call it as date expression. So guys, date expressions returns the current system date and time value. So you can write your own expressions. Current system time na tokondo, so you will get the values. So you can write your own date expressions. These are the different expressions, SQL expressions that you have. What is the next topic that we have? We have constraints. What is the next one we have? We have constraints. Guys, in the constraint, what is the meaning of constraints? Constraints are nothing but rules or the regulations that we need to follow. We have different types of constraints. This is also one of the important topic in this chapter. First thing that I am starting with, primary key constraint. What is the first thing that I am starting with? Primary key constraint. So I have written something like, create table employees. So what is this you have written? So we are not able to understand anything as of now. Please don't worry. So don't worry about these things. I will explain these things word by word, but right now you just have to understand only one thing, that is primary key constraint. Yes sir, what is that primary key constraint? Listen to me carefully. I have a table, right? So I have a table. So in this table, the table name is student. What is the table name? Student. So I have a serial number as a first column name, and then I have name, student name, okay, age and phone number, right? So what is that I'm doing here? I'm making this serial number as primary key. I'm making this serial number as primary key. That is the constraint that I'm giving. That is the rule that I'm giving here. Encoding integer. So I'm making it as primary key. So this encoding, instead of encoding, imagine I have serial number. This is the column name. So this is the column name. Imagine this is the column name. I'm making this serial number as primary key. Primary key ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ sir? So if I do it, if I make this serial number as a primary key, remember point number 1, so you should not have null value. You should not have null value. What is the meaning of it? ನೀವು whatever the data that you are entering, you cannot leave it empty. You cannot leave it empty. That is the first point that you should remember. So point number 2, whatever the value that you are entering, you cannot enter the duplicate values. So that is the rule the primary key constraint is all about. Primary key ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಈ ಎರಡು ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ನ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫೈ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾಲಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ you cannot leave it empty. The second point is you cannot have the duplicate values. That is the constraint. That is what we need to understand with respect to the primary key constraint. ಏನಂತ ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ನಂಬರ್ನ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನೇನು ಇದು ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ಒಂದು, ನಾಟ್ ನಲ್, ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ನಲ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್, ಡ್ಯೂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ನ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಲ್ಲ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಂಟ್. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟು ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾಲಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾನು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಐ ಶುಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಅ ಕೀವರ್ಡ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ. ಐ ಶುಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಅ ಕೀವರ್ಡ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ. ಸೊ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಈ ಕಾಲಮು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಕಾಲಮು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕೀ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಏನು ಕಾಲಮ್ ನೇಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ? ಎನ್ಕೋಡ್. ನಂಗೆ ಎನ್ಕೋಡ್ ಬೇಡ ಸರ್, ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರೈಟ್ ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ ನಂಬರ್. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೆಂಟ್ ದಟ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್. So I have foreign key constraint. I have foreign key constraint. What is that foreign key constraint? So imagine I have a table. Imagine I have a table. So beautiful table. So here also I have one more table. So table 1, okay. Table 2. Here I have columns. Here also I have columns. Namma hatra ide, nimma hatra ilva? Same, right? Here I have serial number. So idanna primary key ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Serial number T1 table ಅಲ್ಲಿ primary key. So the serial number is primary key in this T1 table. In the same way I have serial number here also. In the same way I have serial number here also. Here I have T2, right? So let's take MID. MID is a primary key. MID is a primary key of this table. Serial number is a primary key of this table. If I use the same serial number, okay, this table can act foreign key in some other table. Foreign key in some other table. So ನಾನು ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದರೆ ಸೊ ನಾನು ಸಿಟಿಸನ್. ಇಫ್ ಐ ಗೋ ಟು ಸಮ್ ಅದರ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಫಾರಿನರ್. So in the same way, some other table people, if they come to this table, our own table, so those people will become foreigners. That's the simple concept that you need to understand. So guys, I have come to an end of the session with this. So by now you have understood so different SQL languages and what is the architecture of SQL, all these basic concepts. But from the next session onwards, I will be starting the important things, that is SQL queries. Stay tuned, stay connected. See you. Bye bye.